Was Travis Hunter worth 2 first-round picks? You bet your bottom dollar he was, and I'll tell you why here in just a second.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins of Locked On NFL's The Barbershop, and he is Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And most importantly, he is your co-host here with me every single Thursday on Locked On NFL, both members of the credentialed members of the media. And guess what? We have our finger on the pulse of the NFL as a whole, and what we are going to do is run you through some of the biggest stories of the National Football League today. I'm glad that you joined us, because you can also join us wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap into that location so you do not miss an episode. That is whether you watch or whether you listen. We will be there available. And thank you to the everydayers for joining us each and every day, because it's your team every day. Always thank you for making us your first listen. You can also check out the Locked On Podcast Network's NFL's newsletter. Go to lockedonpodcast.com to get that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel season is around the corner and football season is around the corner. They're both around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Chris and I are going to break it down right now and tell you what we're going to talk about. We're going to end up talking about Matthew Stafford is back. Back being the operative word. Whenever it's that, you kind of there, but not really. In the middle of the show, Micah Parsons. I think him sitting is very probable. We'll go through that because nobody likes to miss game checks. But we're going to start talking about a player who plays for the team that I cover each and every day, and that is Travis Hunter. Lots of talk basically about some comments that Ryan Clark made on ESPN saying that Travis Hunter is not worth it unless he plays both ways. First of all, Chris, welcome to the show. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I mean, here's the thing. If he plays both ways but isn't elite in playing both ways, does that matter? Or do you just have a good body on both sides of the ball? I think part of what would make Travis Hunter worth the trade is if he plays both ways, but he's elite in at least one of those. Or if he's elite in one of those. Like when he signed, like, listen, I get that there's excitement in the idea that he could play both ways, but this is the NFL, man. You get worn down so fast. This game is physical. It's challenging. And I'm not saying Travis Hunter is physically incapable of doing it. I'm not saying none of that. But I do think that if he tries to do this will shorten his career maybe by 4 or 5 seasons. Why would you do that why would you get 4 or 5 seasons less if you think that this guy can be an elite receiver or an elite corner? And if you could think he can be elite one and good at the other, I get that. But maybe do both ways in very sparingly methods. Like you're doing it on occasion here and there. But I mean, you have to look at what the Jaguars gave up to get him. They moved up 3 spots in the draft. They gave up a 2nd round pick and a 4th round pick and a future 1st round pick in exchange for that. Now that's a lot of capital. So there's a chance that the Browns will be in a good position next year to do whatever they need to do in the draft. To me, the only way this wouldn't work out for the Jaguars is if Hunter does not get to contribute to a good situation right now. If Trevor Lawrence ain't the guy and they got to rebuild, well, then they just coughed up an extra 1st round pick for a dude that wasn't a quarterback, and now they got to go get a quarterback, and that's going to take time to figure out. And all the while, Travis Hunter's going to be playing through that rookie contract, and if he's playing both ways, again, those rookie contract years are going to be even more important because he might not have as long as some other guys in the NFL. So I think it's way too early to say whether or not the trade was worth it, wasn't worth it. We got to see how he plays. I'm excited about Travis Hunter. I loved watching him in college. I'm excited to see what he does for the Jaguars. I wish I could have been at the Steelers-Jaguars game to see him in person, but he's a fascinating player, an amazing talent. And, I'm not going to say he's worth the picks yet. I do think I see the Jaguars' strategy. I see why they did it. I think that between him and Mason Graham specifically, I think he will be the better player. That was, of course, the guy that the Browns took at 5 overall, but will he be better than Mason Graham plus the 2nd round pick plus their 4th round pick plus a 1st round pick next year? That remains to be seen.
Yep. And this conversation did not start just because Ryan Clark made those comments after him and the Pivot podcast came to Jaguars practice. In fact, it started right after the draft. Check out the Peacock and Williamson podcast right after the draft, and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts on it.
I want to start with a question about Travis Hunter, Matt. And this is a really good question from Dave, who says, if Travis Hunter is, quote unquote, just a Pro Bowl receiver, did the Jags overpay for him? I.e., does he have to play both sides of the ball to be worth it? Because if you're a Pro Bowl wide receiver, that's a hit, right? That's a huge hit in the NFL draft. As an expensive position. In his second contract, he'll be making $30-40 million per year. But they did trade future first. This was a big swing to go up and get a special talent. If he's just a Pro Bowl wide receiver, is it a bad move by the Jacksonville Jaguars?
See, so I played that just so people would not believe that it's about right nowism, that it's about he came to practice and saw something he didn't like. That's not true. All right. And then I also played it just to pat on the back to the Peacock and Williamson podcast, because something that is now coming up was something that we talked about and broached back in May or June. So just to let you know that we're ahead of the curve on all of these things. But here's my spill on it. Cleveland gave up the rights to Julio Jones for a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't a first-round pick. But if you threw another first-round pick into that trade, guess what? Julio Jones would have still been worth it, right? So folks don't understand that this draft was looked at by the Jaguars in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is this. If the Jaguars were third or fourth, they may not have traded up. I think they believed that there were 4 elite players. They weren't taking a quarterback, so now you trimmed it down to 3. And they made a choice that they were going to get one of them this year. Get something this year when no one else can. Whatever their second-round pick is going to be next year, we're going to add 30 picks to that because next year's draft is loaded with quarterbacks, and it's better than this year's draft. So I believe that's the way that they looked at it. They also looked at it like this. He doesn't have to be elite at everything. I don't think he can be the best wide receiver in the league while playing corner. I don't even think he can be the best corner in the league while playing wide receiver, but I think he can be good at both, and it's going to come down to big plays. His impact on big plays and raising the talent level of a team that is bereft of high-level talent. He is a generational type talent, and they don't come to you if you sit and wait for him. You go and get them. And you add them to the team, and I think him and Brian Thomas Jr. as a tandem is going to give them a shot to be very, very good, Chris.
And look, it doesn't destroy the Chiefs if he's not the best player of all time, for them trading up. The Chiefs, their true rebuild to get to this point started way back when they drafted Travis Kelce in the 3rd round, but also when they had the first overall pick, and it was a guy named Eric Fisher. Now, Eric Fisher did not turn into some superstar tackle, but he was a good tackle that was a kind of a good foundational player for them to build on. And then over the next several years, you saw them get a Marcus Peters, get a Chris Jones, get Patrick Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, and then they started building on other guys. And then that led to kind of the run that they've been on for the past several years now. But I look at this and I think that, look, if Travis Hunter is a very good player and you were sure to lock him down, great. But to me, when you're trading you're giving up basically 2 first-round picks because you're flipping them your 5th overall pick, and then your 1st-round pick next year. That is saying, hey, we're believing in the right now. That's what you're trying to do, but you're trying to get him to contribute to win right now. And again, you're talking about that quarterback class. Now that they've given up that 1st-round pick, they're out of that. They're not going to be in the quarterback conversations next year. So again, they're believing in Trevor Lawrence. I do wonder if the Jaguars, if they have the right plan to win with this crew right now or during Travis Hunter's rookie deal, and if they don't, if they don't turn into something in the AFC South, then it's going to be okay, whatever they need to do coming up, they've cost themselves an extra 1st and other picks into building a new nucleus that's going to carry them into the future.
Trevor Lawrence is playing on his 5th-year option right now, and Trevor Lawrence's extension that he signed doesn't kick in to 2026. So even if he plays bad, they ain't picking a quarterback next year anyway, not in the 1st round, because that's the 1st year of his extension. But I get it, and I know a lot of people don't understand that, but that's a good conversation to have. We're going to have one about a current player who isn't getting what he wants, and that is Micah Parsons in Dallas. We're going to point out some of the other parts of the team, but we're going to turn that thing right back around and come back and I'm going to tell you why Jerry Jones and the crew are crazy for not signing him to whatever they're asking for in Dallas. We'll talk about that more here in a second on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. All right, I've been talking about MVPs and all of that for just a minute, but now I'm going to talk about who I think has the best shot at being the champion. That would be, in my opinion, the Los Angeles Rams. But they got something going on with Matthew Stafford. I still believe in them, though, and you can visit FanDuel, the app today, and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, moving and grooving here on Locked On NFL with my man Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers. Pittsburgh has some pass rushers. They also have everybody under contract. Dallas has people under contract. Micah Parsons is supposed to be playing on his fifth-year option. There's a lot of noise in Dallas about some of the good moves that the Cowboys have made, especially this year with them going in for infrastructure and then trading for a wide receiver to go opposite CD Lamb. But there's a move that they made last year that might be hurting them a little bit. Talk about draft picks and people that they traded for. There was a head scratcher. And now it might be coming back to bite him a little bit. Listen to the guys from Locked On Cowboys.
I'm just bummed for Mingo because he played before he got hurt. He made an unbelievable play down the sideline. We were excited about him playing with Dak and being one of these big-bodied outside receivers. And now we're going to have to wait. And let's say it's a 6-week injury. And I think Todd Archer was even saying that Cowboys are bracing for it to maybe be even a little bit longer than that. You put him on the IR list. He misses the first month of the season. And then it's really hard to get back on like a moving train as the season is going on. You have all these other guys you're working into the offense. It's just a bummer for a guy that kind of needed to get off to a good start.
Yeah, I will say this. I think when he comes back, they're going to fold him right back into the offense. And who knows, with injuries and the way they are, maybe he comes back right in time when you need him for somebody else that got Tolbert or someone who gets nicked up or something.
All right, that's Jonathan Mingo, a kid that hadn't done much since he was a second-round pick. Dallas, I believe, gave up a third-round pick to Carolina. And then they went out and got George Pickens from your Pittsburgh Steelers. They keep trading for guys that got to re-sign and hoping that they turn out right. But more importantly, they're guessing about those players. You don't have to guess about Micah Parsons. And I'm not going to let them off the hook, Chris. Jerry Jones has had the audacity to say that he had an agreement with Micah Parsons where Micah Parsons didn't have representation. And now that Micah Parsons' representation wants to talk about the deal, Jerry says, no, he is treading on thin ice when it comes to just what the league policy is and the Players Association based on how you treat people. You can't treat people like that because they have an agent that you don't like or don't want to talk to. I think it's a big misstep on Jerry's part.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, Jerry is the one treading on thin ice right now. This, Micah Parsons is a superstar who can dictate where he wants to go as soon as his contract is up, and Jerry Jones can slap franchise tags on him. But we all know that might not be enough to keep Micah Parsons in the fold for much longer. So, I think that when you look at what the Cowboys are doing here, Jerry Jones has been a self-saboteur of the things that have been built, that have been good around him for years. And that's the problem here. And Micah Parsons, I think, is starting to see it. And I think Micah Parsons is willing to overlook it for like $45 million a year. And who wouldn't be, right? Yeah. Look at Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was like, get me out of Cleveland. $40 million, keep me in Cleveland.
Staying in Cleveland.
That's that's something that you'll be able to do. So I get it. I get as part of that, but Jerry saying oh well we had a deal, and if it wasn't written in ink, you didn't have a deal. And trust me, organizations stick players with that all the time. The Steelers are going through that with Cam Hayward because he's the 22nd highest paid defensive tackle, and he's like, hey, I got my fourth first team All Pro in my career. I deserve more than that. And the Steelers are like, well, that was the contract, buddy. So I think that they're gonna give him some new money soon. That's not gonna be a thing for much longer. But still, I think that when you run into these situations, you're the Cowboys. You have all the money. Paying Micah Parsons should not be a question at this point. But when you make this kind of a spectacle, you not only do you make it a spectacle and a distraction for your team, but you make it so that now this player may not want to play for you much longer. And now he's like, you know what, this isn't a family situation. I'm not going to sign a deal that's beneficial to you and me. And look, I get that there's a lot of money tied up with the Cowboys right now between Dak Prescott's future money, Terrence Steele's future money, CeeDee Lamb's future money. I get that there's stuff like that in the that's getting in the way here. But Micah Parsons, it has the potential to be a generational talent. You cannot let that dude just walk out the door just because you couldn't get him to the money that you figure out a way to make it work with those guys.
He's a beloved figure by his teammates. Maybe not some of the former teammates.
How you treat your superstars reflects on the future. Like, that's a big reason why, like when I've said on my show, when the Steelers were getting a new deal done with TJ Watt, I'm like, it's going to get done. I've seen this story before. The TJ Watt's a Steeler for life. They want that guy around. He wants to be around. It's going to get done. Lo and behold, it got done. Same thing with Cam Hayward's deal last year. Same thing with the renegotiations this year. But when you treat those players right, everyone else is like, hey, we know that if we play by the rules, if we are great at our job, if we're team centric, if we're leaders, we want to be part of this organization. So we will do all the right things to be there. And that doesn't mean that you win a Super Bowl with those guys, but they want to play for you. And that's a big reason why the Steelers, oftentimes with those guys, they're able to keep those guys around. But when you start playing with those guys money and you don't want to pay them, and again, I'm talking about paying them the rate that's the going rate in the NFL when a player is a superstar, then people start looking at you funny. And then future guys are like, you know what? I remember how they did TJ. I remember how they did, like, Cowboys guys are going to be saying, I remember how they did Micah. If this goes south, there's going to be less faith in the team and the organization and Jerry Jones specifically. So get out your own way, Jerry Jones. Stop being the self-saboteur of the Dallas Cowboys.
You are absolutely right. And then those guys will look and say, if you don't pay him, I know you ain't going to pay me.
Exactly.
That's just the way that it goes. And I think he would actually sit out and miss game checks for this. I think he'll do what Emmitt Smith did the first 2 years after Dallas won their first Super Bowl in '92. He sat out, man, and guess what happened? They had to come see him because they started out 0-2. Michael can mitigate some of the lost money by doing a podcast. That's what he already does. He can make a gang of money as the dude sitting out, and he can talk about it every week, especially if he does one 30 minutes after the Dallas Cowboys loses and he comes up with some deal with somebody. I'm telling you, man, losing those game checks ain't going to hurt as much this year as they used to in the past because of this new media thing. Something else to ponder in that division they're playing. I think the Giants are going to be a little bit better than people think. And we forget, even though they had a lot of things go wrong and they got rid of the wrong players and paid the right people, they did get one player right. And you are familiar with this because Pittsburgh drafted a guy from University of Georgia. They got it right with Andrew Thomas, and I heard he's healthy. Check out Patricia Traynor.
The New York Giants offense gets some good news as left tackle Andrew Thomas has passed his physical and has been activated off the PUP list. Also, wide receiver Malik Neighbors, who has been sidelined with toe and back issues this summer, and running back Cam Scatterbo, who was dealing with a hamstring issue, were among those returning to practice on Tuesday. Thomas's return is huge as the offense has struggled without him. Last year, the Giants' offense averaged 105.8 yards on the ground and 213.5 yards in the air with him in the lineup, and 67.5 rushing yards and 114.5 yards in the air without him.
Andrew Thomas is a really good player, and sometimes we look at the Giants and think that they have been a total screw up. They didn't miss with him. That dude can play.
No, look, I think that the Giants have some pieces here. I'm sorry, that division's way too good for them to do anything. Like, you got the Eagles coming off the Super Bowl championship, but hey, the NFC East curse is real. No team has repeated as champion since 2004, so someone else is going to win it. But it ain't going to be the Giants.
Yeah.
The Commanders are right in line. I think they're going to win the division this year. I think that they got a really good team. They're going to work it out with Terry McLaurin. I think that the Cowboys, even before the Giants, would be in line for that. I'm sorry. Listen, I like Russell Wilson as a person. He was a really cool dude to interview and talk with last year with the Steelers, and I wish the best for him. But he's in a rough situation in New York. I don't believe in Jackson Dart. I think that this team, like, there's certain players like Andrew Thomas, like Malik Neighbors, that I really like. I like John Michael Schmitz Jr., but there's a lot of other holes that I think that they got going on right now that I'm not sure that they're going to find a way to navigate through. So count me as not in on the Giants being a real threat in the NFC this year.
See there? That's good. That's good. That's good radio and good podcasting right there. We ain't gonna sit here and agree with each other all the time, and we do it with respect and make our point, and then we move back. And we're gonna move back right now. We're gonna talk about the Rams, who I said I really like their team, and I know Stafford has some issues. Now I will admit this: that issue that he has, it ain't going away. I know from personal experience. Those back problems always seem like they last. We'll talk about the Rams in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Got to let y'all know about Monarch Money, man. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, investments, and when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data, visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching the spreadsheet. Man, I was paying for one subscription 3 times. Monarch Money straightened that out for me, and it could save you money and straighten it out for you too. Don't let financial opportunities like this slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser or half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, moving and grooving with my man Chris Carter right here on Locked On NFL. It is fantasy football season, so I'm going to let y'all know. Y'all make this your first listen, but I want to thank you in advance for making Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast your second listen with Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk. Listen, it's time for you to get the drafting right, man, because this is where championships are won. So make sure you find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right. So here we go. Matt Stafford. The Rams have been like my little team that I've been saying is so dangerous because they came real close to beating Philly last year. They were a real threat. And they added Davante Adams, but Matthew Stafford's back is tripping a little bit. Now, the guys from Locked On Rams will tell you he's back. They said that he's back the other day, but back being the operative word, you're never really back with a back. Check out this.
And Schefter said, quote, "We are just over 3 weeks away. He's 37 years old. It's a backs linger. I think it's problematic, but again, I'm just telling you they are not worried. They have not been concerned, and they have maintained all along that if there were a game this week, Matthew Stafford would be out there and he would be playing." And as new doubts creep in, it's not is he going to play? It's how will he perform when he plays?
Listen to me, man. This ain't 7-on-7. Ain't no red jerseys when the game really starts. You already know that there's dudes that's going to push him and knock him on the ground and make him realize that that back is still there. And when you're playing and you're trying to dodge 300-pound dudes coming at you, you make sudden moves that you normally wouldn't make if you're just standing there on the practice field. This has me a little concerned, Chris.
It also makes me wonder what the plan is for Sean McVay's offense this year, because one thing I think Sean McVay is very good at, he's good at maximizing talent and finding ways to match scheme to what he has on the field. And look, the Rams got a lot of talent. They got Puka Nacua. Everyone knows them. Davante Adams was added. But look out for their late round draft pick, Konate Mumfield, a really good route runner who could make the team and be an extra guy out there as well. I like their guards, Steve Avila and Kevin Dotson, but I'm not so sure about their tackles. And when you're not sure about your tackles, and if you're playing teams with good pass rushes, and you're trying to protect your 37-year-old quarterback who has a bad back, you're going to need to throw the ball quickly. And if you're throwing the ball quickly, you're not always getting your receivers the best chances to make plays. But hey, I think Sean McVay, he does some good things. He has a lot of really good things as a head coach. He'll find ways to try to make that work a bit. But I do have questions as far as the Rams, as far as how far they can go this year if they're having to deal with a limited Matt Stafford, because let's face it, their quarterbacks behind him, Jimmy Garoppolo, Stetson Bennett, not exactly inspiring a lot of confidence there.
Yeah, I got you. One thing that could really help them with Nacua and, of course, Davante Adams, those guys stack really well. They got good releases inside. They get to their routes really, really fast. So that means the linebackers and the safeties have to always play them honestly in the short, intermediate areas of the field. That being said, you just said the interior of the line is their strength. Kyron Williams, their running back, got a contract extension. I would run that pill, play action, ball out quick, keep everybody honest. And they got a defense that can also chase people with those young pass rushers. So maybe that's going to be a part of their strategy. One of the things we keep wondering about is how good will the Detroit Lions be with their coordinators leaving and trying to get guys back from injury, trying to onboard any new nuances in their offense. But one thing keeps getting left behind. Dan Campbell can coach. Dan Campbell, to me, has gone beyond the press conference where he was talking about eating kneecaps and all of that stuff, where I thought it was like weird, but now I actually believe in his day-to-day operation as a head coach. The kneecap thing won't go away. Matt Derry even tell you why right here.
Do we not talk enough just about how good a head coach Dan Campbell is? Everybody loves talking about the kneecap biting presser from 5 years ago and all the stuff that, he's a fun guy, but are we underrating the fact that this guy's a damn good head football coach?
We shouldn't be. That to me is obvious. I think Dan has done an incredible job on both sides of connecting with players, management, fan base, and then handling games. And maybe because of his personality, some people overlook that part of it. But he's a tremendous head coach by all measures and should be viewed as such.
Chris, I know what it's like for people to look at you and get caught up. Like, since we started doing our podcast on YouTube, everybody just talks about how handsome I am. I want people to talk about how smart I am. And to go back when we first started this, when we were audio only, then you'll have value for my brain instead of just paying attention to these good looks. And I think Dan Campbell gets a little bit of the same treatment.
What are we doing here with? I don't know if Dan Campbell's getting any of that treatment. I do know this. He came into the Lions, they were 3-13-1 his first year. And then the kneecap biting comment, comes across as, okay, whatever, guy. Let's see what you guys do. And then his first season's terrible. But then his second year, they get to 9-8. In the last 2 years, they have been a serious Super Bowl threat. They were 12-5 and 23. They were 15-2 last year. Now, I do think it's going to be interesting what's going to happen now that both of his coordinators are gone. Will they be able to keep it up? But he certainly has built a good culture for the Lions, and that's not something that's easy to do in a team that's historically just been a terrible organization in the NFL. Historically, the Lions have always been bad, and so now he's made them good for back-to-back years. And I think that that's something that deserves merit when you look at the Lions' history. Before that, do you know the last time the Lions had back-to-back seasons with double-digit wins?
Talk to me.
Honestly, I thought I'd be able to scroll and find that. I'm now in the 50s and I can't find it because it doesn't happen. This is what Dan Campbell has done. He's giving you hope for the first time ever. Again, that's what he's done is he's brought hope to a franchise. Now, will it wear off? Who knows? I think they have some really good players. I love Penei Sewell. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I love Amon St. Brown. I think that I love Aiden Hutchinson when he's healthy. You got to hope that he's healthy this year. But the Lions have a lot of goods on their team right now. But they got to capitalize. And I think, the last 2 years ago, they lost the conference championship game. Last year, they lost the division game. And then despite being 15-2, I think it's going to be a really interesting season because the NFC North looks loaded. I like the Packers a lot. I think the Vikings could be interesting. I don't know about McCarthy yet. I got to see what happens there. But this is a division that's going to be tough. And the Bears, they got their offensive coordinator and Caleb Williams. Will they be for real? So the Lions have a lot of goods though. They think their O-line, I think, is really good. They beefed up the trenches. I think they're ready for that style of football. And I think that style of football is starting to really take over the NFL and become important as more teams are going back to too high safety looks to limit the deep ball in the passing game. So look out for those types of things. But yeah, I think that I think Dan Campbell's doing a heck of a job, and he deserves time to figure it out. And even if they fall off this year, even if this year they for some reason they have a losing season and they don't get back to the playoffs, I give Dan Campbell grace because what he's done with an organization that's used to just being terrible deserves a lot of credit.
You are absolutely right. You deserve credit. You ain't let me throw you off with me sitting up here talking about how good I look. And I love the fact that you stayed on your game, man.
Also, I finished scrolling through their entire history. That was the first time ever that the Lions had back-to-back seasons with double-digit wins.
You still ain't let me throw you off. You still just dropping facts here on Locked On NFL. And that's what we do here on Locked On NFL. He is Chris Carter. I'm Tony Wiggins. Man, enjoy this last weekend of preseason because it's about to get real. You're about to see a whole bunch of player transactions. You're seeing it now. We're going to be giving it all to you every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Steelers, Locked On Jaguars, Locked On NFL. Y'all make sure y'all tap in each and every day, especially if you're an everydayer because it's your team every day. If you're new here, come on back. Come on back. That's what we do each and every time here on Locked On NFL. Y'all, thanks, man. Have a good one.